Have you ever sat in a room and felt like everyone else just gets it faster than you do? Meetings, conversations, decisions. Everyone nodding along, and you're still 3 steps behind, quietly wondering if you're actually not that smart. Here's something that might annoy you a little. That exact feeling, the constant self-doubt, can sometimes show up in people who think more deeply than they give themselves credit for. Not the opposite. The actual sign. There's a specific theory buried in gifted psychology research that almost nobody outside of academic circles has ever heard of. It ties together nearly everything on this list, and once you hear it, you'll probably recognize yourself somewhere in it. Stick around, because I'm saving that one for the end. Sign 1. You talk to yourself. Out loud, under your breath, whatever. A researcher at the University of Wisconsin, Gary Lupien, found that people who say a word out loud while searching for something find it faster than people who stay silent. Other self-talk research has found similar benefits for organizing thoughts and staying focused. You're basically coaching your own brain through a hard problem in real time. Einstein reportedly did this constantly. Sign 2. You get bored fast. Not because you're lazy. Some minds simply lose interest quickly once something becomes predictable. Something that satisfied you yesterday just doesn't hit the same today. That restlessness isn't a personality flaw. It's closer to a signal that your brain wants a harder problem to chew on. Sign 3. You constantly doubt yourself. This one trips people up because it feels backwards. There's a well-known finding called the Dunning-Kruger effect. People who know very little about something tend to be the most confident about it because they can't see how much they're missing. The people who actually understand a subject deeply, they see all the exceptions, all the edge cases, everything that could still go wrong. So the more you genuinely know, the less certain you tend to sound. If you constantly second-guess yourself, that's usually not a lack of ability. Sometimes, it's awareness of how much you could still be missing. Sign 4. Sounds get under your skin. A ticking clock. Someone breathing a little too loud. Fluorescent lights buzzing, in a way nobody else seems to notice. Now, I want to be careful here, because the research on this one is genuinely mixed. There's a real concept called sensory overexcitability, studied in gifted individuals, where the nervous system takes in more raw environmental data than average. But the observed differences are often small, and being sensitive to sound on its own doesn't prove anything about intelligence. Think of it less as a standalone sign, and more as one thread in a bigger pattern, which we'll get to. Sign 5. You procrastinate hard on the work that actually matters to you. Sometimes perfectionism and overthinking make important work strangely difficult to start. The brain already sees, in vivid detail, everything the finished project would need to be genuinely great, every flaw it could contain, every way it could fall short. So it waits. Sometimes right up until the deadline, forces a kind of clarity that cuts through all that overthinking. This idea is still debated in the research, so take it as a pattern worth recognizing in yourself, not a settled scientific fact. Sign 6. You feel things a little too much. Music that wrecks you, for no clear reason. Injustice that sits in your chest, for days after you've seen it. This surprises people, because we tend to picture high intelligence as cold and analytical. Some research on emotional depth and cognitive processing points the other way. Deeper processing can come with deeper emotional response, not less of one. Sign 7. You remember strange, irrelevant details with almost no effort. The exact wording of something a stranger said 4 years ago. A single line from a documentary you half-watched at midnight. Meanwhile, you can lose your car keys twice in one morning. That's not a memory contradiction. Working memory and long-term pattern storage are two genuinely different systems, and one of them is doing a lot more heavy lifting than the other. Sign 8. You'd rather watch a room than talk in it. In group conversations, you're often the one quietly reading who's deferring to whom, what's actually being avoided, what the conversation is really about, underneath the small talk. People sometimes read that as having nothing to say. Usually it's closer to the opposite. You're just gathering the full picture before you spend words on it. Okay, here's the concept. I told you I was saving. A psychiatrist named Kazimierz Dabrowski spent decades studying exceptionally gifted people, and he noticed something that most personality research completely misses. He called it overexcitability. Basically, Dabrowski proposed that some people experience the world with unusual intensity across 5 different channels. Intellectual, the non-stop hunger to understand how things actually work underneath the surface. Emotional, the depth we just talked about. Imaginational, a vivid, almost cinematic inner world. Sensory, that heightened pickup of sound, light, and texture. And psychomotor, a kind of restless physical or mental energy that doesn't have an obvious off switch. Most people have one or two of these, running quietly in the background. Gifted individuals, according to Dabrowski's research, often have several running loud, all at once. And that's really the hidden thread behind most of the signs we've covered. It's not a set of unrelated personality quirks. It's one nervous system operating at a higher resolution than most people's. Think about what that actually means for a second. It means the same wiring that makes you notice the one detail everyone else missed can be the same wiring that makes a fluorescent light feel unbearable. The same depth that lets you feel someone else's grief like it's your own can be the reason small talk leaves you completely drained. It's less like 5 different traits you happen to collect, and more like one dial, turned up higher than most people's, running in the background of everything you do. Here's a part of this that connects to a lot of quiet loneliness. Gifted education researchers have long written about something called asynchronous development, where a person's intellectual, emotional, and social growth don't move at the same pace, which can make it harder to feel like you fit in a room full of people your own age. It's part of why history is full of unusually sharp minds who felt sidelined or out of step with their surroundings. Not because they were incorrect, because they were simply out of sync. So if you've ever felt like people pull back slightly when you go too deep in a conversation, or you've learned to simplify yourself just to keep things comfortable, that's not you being difficult. It's a documented pattern in how giftedness plays out socially, and it says more about that mismatch in pace than it says anything bad about you. Which brings me to the last sign, and honestly, the one that matters most. You never really stop learning. Even after you already know enough to get by, some part of you keeps reading, keeps asking one more question, keeps circling back to something that doesn't quite sit right yet. That restlessness, the one that's probably kept you watching this entire video, instead of stopping 5 minutes in, is genuinely one of the clearest markers researchers keep coming back to. Being intelligent was never really about test scores or how fast you finish a crossword. It's about how much of the world your mind refuses to let go of unexamined. The overthinking, the sensitivity to sound and mood and injustice. The self-doubt, that's actually just accuracy wearing an uncomfortable disguise. So next time somebody tells you you're too intense, too quiet, too far in your own head, let that land differently than it used to. That might just be what a genuinely sharp mind looks like from the outside, and most people have simply never been taught how to recognize it.